Reggie Miller has definitely put himself in a spotlight after making some comments about Caitlin Clark during their NBC debut. Now, Caitlin Clark made her analyst debut last night versus the Knicks in New York City, and I am here to tell you guys this. Reggie Miller kind of stole the show with comparing Caitlin Clark to a mid-level NBA player.
Reggie Miller, you ought to slap yourself. Did you compare Caitlin Clark to Payton Pritchard of the Boston Celtics? You have lost your damn mind. Now, there's a few comparisons you could have thrown out there, but using Payton Pritchard is just flat out disrespectful.
ESPN fans, the most important moment from Caitlin Clark's NBC debut wasn't what she said, it was what she didn't say. Because one NBA comparison hit the desk, Caitlin gave a deadpan reaction and the clip exploded everywhere. And that awkward moment exposed something bigger. NBA media still doesn't know how to talk about Caitlin Clark. Therefore, the WNBA can't control this conversation heading into the CBA fight. Stay with me, because I'm going to break this down through 3 scenes. And by the end, you'll understand why that Pritchard moment wasn't funny. It was a warning. Scene 1. The setup. Caitlin is on NBC at Madison Square Garden. Bright lights, prime time, legends on the desk. This is not a WNBA audience. This is the mainstream basketball audience. And when you put Caitlin on that desk, you're asking a simple question. Can she hold the room? She did. She looked calm. She wasn't performing. She wasn't begging for approval. She looked like she belonged. Therefore, the audience treated her like a real basketball voice right away. And that's what made the next part so important. Scene 2. The comparison. Reggie Miller gets asked for an NBA comp for Caitlin, and he says Payton Pritchard.
I'm actually curious too. I know you guys have seen Caitlin play. She's a one-of-ones, but is there like a comparison of someone either you played with or you guys watching the game right now that reminds you of the young lady to your right?
I like Payton Pritchard from Boston, the way he's able to handle the basketball. He makes big shots when the shot clock's running down, a lot like this young lady right here. Isn't afraid of the big moment and is a champion like she's soon to be.
The second it lands, Caitlin's face goes blank. Not angry, not disrespectful, just deadpan. Like, that's the one you chose. And here's why that reaction mattered. Because casual viewers don't live in WNBA nuance. They live in shortcuts. They want a simple story. And comparisons are the fastest shortcut in sports. But when the shortcut feels off, the audience reacts instantly.
We got to start with Reggie Miller done lost his damn mind. I could not believe my ears and what he had to say. Let's get to what Reggie Miller had to say, man, because this is nasty work. CC, you had every right to crash out on him if you wanted to for this.
Reminds you of the young lady to your right.
I like Payton Pritchard from Boston, the way he's able to handle.
Somebody check his drink, check his cup, check his medicine, check his food, check everything about Reggie Miller. Caitlin Clark and Payton Pritchard don't belong in the same damn sentence together. Okay?
They don't debate it like analysts. They laugh, they roast, they clip it. Therefore, the moment goes viral, and now you have a new problem. The biggest basketball audience just learned Caitlin through a meme, not through her game, not through her impact, through a comparison they didn't buy. And when the first impression becomes a joke, the conversation stops being fair. It becomes loud. Scene 3. Why this matters for the WNBA. Because this wasn't just a random, awkward moment. It exposed the gap between how Caitlin is actually shaping women's basketball and how NBA media is trying to frame her inside their own language. If they don't know how to describe her properly, they default to safe comps. Smaller guard, shooter, spark plug. But that misses the point. Caitlin isn't just a shooter, she's a system. She's gravity. She warps defensive schemes. She bends the entire floor. And the fact that this had to be explained after her debut tells you everything. The mainstream basketball world is still catching up. Now here's the part people are missing. That clip exploding is not bad. For Caitlin, it's fuel, because every viral moment increases attention, and attention increases leverage. And leverage is exactly what the WNBA is about to fight over with the next CBA. So when Caitlin sits on an NBA desk and becomes the center of the conversation, it changes the environment the league negotiates in. Owners see star power, networks see ratings potential, sponsors see reach, and players see the uncomfortable reality. The league is fighting for collective gains, but the market keeps rewarding individual gravity. Therefore, you get tension. Not because players hate Caitlin, but because everyone can feel the league being pulled toward a star economy, right when unity matters most. And that is why the Pritchard moment is bigger than a meme. It's proof that Caitlin has crossed into the mainstream basketball machine. And once you're in that machine, you don't get controlled. You get amplified. Sometimes accurately, sometimes badly, but always loudly. So here's the real question. Did that comparison moment accidentally help Caitlin by making the internet talk even more? Or did it show that NBA media is still unprepared for what Caitlin represents heading into 2026? If you're still watching, drop Pritchard in the comments.
Let's talk about Caitlin Clark. She put something up on social media that's kind of raised some eyebrows in regards to the WNBA, and it seems like she's putting some pressure on these CBA talks to try to get them done. Now, the other night she was on NBC. We'll get to that in a second because NBC's leadership president, has come out, made some comments about her being on that telecast between the Knicks and the Lakers, an NBA telecast. By the way, 4.5 million people tuned in. It was a record.
ESPN fans, NBC just told you their entire plan for Caitlin Clark in one word. Not women's basketball, not WNBA. NBC called her a star in basketball. And that single word is why the WNBA-CBA fight just got louder. Because once a network positions Caitlin as basketball, period, it changes who she's for. And it changes who feels pressure when negotiations get ugly. Stay with me, because I'm going to break this down through 3 scenes from that MSG night. Therefore, you'll see why this isn't a cute media cameo, it's a strategy.
Caitlin Clark, her NBC, the numbers for that game have finally been released. The executives over there already speaking very highly of her. Is there a potential position in the future? Are they going to be expanding her role? More appearances to come? We're going to be talking about that as well.
The stage wasn't WNBA, it was Madison Square Garden. Prime time, bright lights. A new NBC studio show built like an event. NBC didn't hide Caitlin in a side segment. They put her at the main desk beside people casual NBA fans already trust. That's how you transfer credibility fast. MSG is not where you try someone. MSG is where you anoint someone. And Caitlin didn't look nervous. She looked calm. She looked ready. That calm matters because the mainstream audience reads body language before they process words. Therefore, viewers accepted her as part of basketball right away. Scene 2. This is the tell. NBC didn't describe Caitlin as a star of women's basketball. They described her as one of the most captivating players and dynamic scorers in basketball.
Let's get into what the executives over there at NBC had to say. NBC Sports leadership weighs in. Rick Cordello spoke positively about Clark's debut, noting that she did a good job and handled the role with ease. He highlighted her understanding of the game and her ability to communicate clearly, 2 qualities that translate well from the court to the broadcast booth. Cordello also made it clear that Clark was well prepared and comfortable in the setting, something that stood out given the size of the audience and the spotlight that comes with an NBA national broadcast.
Basketball. That word is deliberate. It's positioning. Because the moment you remove the women's label, you're saying the audience is not separate. You're saying the product isn't niche. You're saying she belongs in the same conversation as the sport's biggest names. And when you do that, you change the value equation. Sponsors don't just see WNBA sponsorship, they see basketball sponsorship. Networks don't just see women's rights coverage, they see basketball programming that can pull numbers. Therefore, Caitlin's gravity becomes a mainstream asset, and every negotiation around the league feels different. Now think about what this does inside the league. The union is fighting for collective gains, better pay, better conditions, more revenue share. But the market rewards individual gravity. So when NBC tells the world Caitlin is basketball, they make the star economy more obvious. And that's where friction starts.
Caitlin Clark she's applying a little pressure here. She is. We know Caitlin Clark from basically everything she has said. And I've said, man, boy, if it was me, she would be the president of the Players Union. I wouldn't think twice about it. Because you can tell, yeah, she wants a fair deal, but she also wants to play basketball. And she has handled this whole thing with an immense amount of class that we haven't seen out of hardly anybody involving these talks.
Not because players hate Caitlin, but because players can feel the spotlight shifting to one person during the most sensitive business moment the league has. Scene 3. The CBA clock is ticking. Players are already talking about leverage. The threat of disruption is real, and a disruption forces everyone to choose how long they can hold their breath. Some players need the season on time. They rely on those checks. They rely on rhythm. They rely on visibility. But Caitlin just showed she has a mainstream platform that doesn't depend on the WNBA calendar. That doesn't mean she's against the union. It means her personal risk is different. Therefore, the pressure is uneven. And uneven pressure is what can crack unity if leadership doesn't manage it. So don't fall for the lazy framing. This isn't Caitlin versus players. The real story is simpler. NBC is building a basketball identity, and Caitlin is being positioned as a pillar of that identity. But when a network does that, they are not waiting for the WNBA to decide its future. They're deciding it for them, because now the league has to negotiate while the biggest star is being mainstreamed in real time, and that shifts public perception. If a strike happens, casual fans won't ask, "What's the WNBA doing?" They'll ask, "Why is basketball being interrupted?" That's different pressure. Now here's the part that should make every owner nervous. When a star becomes bigger than the league moment to moment, the league loses control of the narrative. They still control the games, but they don't control the story. And negotiations are half story. So what does NBC gain? A bridge. If the WNBA is stable, NBC wins because Caitlin feeds their coverage and drags more eyes to basketball nights. But if the WNBA gets unstable, NBC still wins because Caitlin stays mainstream and the audience stays connected to the story. That's a hedge. It's content insurance. And it's one more reason the WNBA can't afford a messy public fight. Here's the takeaway. NBC didn't hire Caitlin as a guest. They hired her as a signal to fans that she's not boxed into a category, a signal to sponsors that women's basketball isn't a separate shelf, and a signal to the WNBA that the biggest star can maintain mainstream momentum with or without league stability. Therefore, the CBA fight just got harder to hide, because the more mainstream Caitlin becomes, the more mainstream the negotiation becomes. Now the question that decides the next chapter is this. If NBC successfully sells Caitlin as basketball, does that strengthen the union by raising the league's value? Or does it create a star economy so obvious that the league fractures at the worst time? If you're still watching, drop basketball in the comments.
Is there a player or someone you watch even more specifically because there's things in his game maybe you would want to add to yours in the league?
Man, I think Luka. I mean, Luka's amazing and he's incredible. I think the way he can not only score the ball, but also the way he passes. And I think the thing about him is, like, he's not the fastest, he's not the most athletic, but he can get his defender to move where he wants him to go, and he takes up that space, and he does a really good job of either keeping the defender behind him or keeping him to the side. So I think that's something I can certainly learn from. Like, I always kind of want to run away from the defense rather than absorbing the contact and taking up the space that they give me. So
ESPN just got a new problem because Caitlin Clark didn't just appear on NBC. She walked into Madison Square Garden, sat next to NBA legends, and the whole basketball world watched her look completely at home. And here's why this matters. WNBA players are staring down a CBA fight that could shake the next season. But Caitlin just proved she can keep the spotlight, even when the league is in chaos. Stay with me, because in a minute, I'm going to show you the moment that quietly exposed the real power dynamic. Not a rumor, a live TV moment. It starts at the desk. NBC launches basketball night in America at MSG. Big lights, big arena, big stage. Maria Taylor introduces Caitlin like she belongs there. Carmelo Anthony is right there. Reggie Miller is right there. And Caitlin is the headline, not the game. Her. You could feel it. This wasn't WNBA Star Tries TV. This was NBC is building the future around her. But the first thing Caitlyn did wasn't argue. She joked. She looked at the desk and basically admitted, "I'm short next to these guys." Later, she even posted she might need stilts next time. That one joke did a lot. It made her human. It made her likable. But it also made the clip travel, because the internet loves a star who can laugh while standing in the biggest room. Then Maria asks Caitlyn about the arena, and Caitlyn doesn't give a boring answer. She paints a scene. Warm-ups, buzz, noise, energy. She says Knicks fans are crazy and she loves it. That line matters because it shows what NBC wants. They want Caitlyn to sound like a basketball person, not a women's basketball person. Basketball, period. Then the conversation turns to growth. Maria asks Caitlyn who she watches in the NBA, and Caitlyn goes straight to Luka Doncic.
Is there a player or someone you watch even more specifically because there's things in his game maybe you would want to add to yours in the league?
Man, I think Luka. I mean, Luka's amazing and he's incredible. I think the way he can not only score the ball, but also the way he passes. And I think the thing about him is, like, he's not the fastest, he's not the most athletic, but he can get his defender to move where he wants him to go, and he takes up that space, and he does a really good job of either keeping the defender behind him or keeping him to the side.
Not because Luka is flashy, but because Luka controls space. Caitlyn explains it clearly. She says Luka isn't the fastest, he isn't the most athletic, but he moves defenders where he wants them. He absorbs contact. He takes up space. And Caitlyn admits something most stars never admit on TV. She says she tends to run away from contact, therefore she wants to learn how to use it. That's high IQ. That's real. That's not PR. And the reason this part matters is simple. WNBA fans already know Caitlyn can shoot, but a lot of casual NBA fans only know the logo threes. This segment showed something deeper. It showed she understands the chess game. Therefore, NBA fans who never watched a single WNBA game just got a reason to respect her. But the night didn't stay safe, because Reggie Miller got asked an NBA comparison for Caitlyn, and he picked Payton Pritchard.
I'm actually curious too. I know you guys have seen Caitlyn play. She's a one of ones, but is there like a comparison of someone either you played with or you guys watching the game right now that reminds you of the young lady to your right?
I like Payton Pritchard from Boston, the way he's able to handle the basketball. He makes big shots when the shot clock's running down, a lot like this young lady right here. Isn't afraid of the big moment and is a champion like she's soon to be.
The second he said it, Caitlyn's face went blank. Not angry, not rude, just deadpan. Like, that's what you went with. It was the most honest reaction you can have without saying a word. And that's why it went viral, because fans saw what they were thinking. And right there, NBC got what every network secretly prays for. A clip that spreads itself. A moment you don't need to explain, you just post it. But here's the twist. That viral moment wasn't even the biggest moment of her debut. The biggest moment was when Caitlyn brought up the CBA, live on NBC at MSG, with legends sitting next to her. Caitlyn didn't dodge it. She didn't do the no comment thing. She framed it as one of the biggest moments women's sports has had. And she said she felt confident a deal would get done soon. That is massive, because it tells you Caitlyn understands what's at stake, not just for her, for everyone. But here's the part the league can't ignore. When Caitlyn speaks about the CBA on a massive NBA broadcast, it changes the pressure, because now the CBA story isn't trapped in WNBA circles, it's in the mainstream. Owners feel that, sponsors feel that, networks feel that. Therefore, the negotiation isn't just numbers on paper anymore. It's reputation, it's optics, it's momentum. Now let's talk about why NBC did this at all. NBC's executive producer Sam Flood called Caitlyn one of the most captivating players and dynamic scorers in basketball. Basketball, not women's basketball. That's a deliberate choice. It's positioning. It signals how NBC plans to sell her. And that's where WNBA players start to feel the tension. Because if Caitlyn is being positioned as basketball's star, the league will lean on her harder. The marketing will lean on her harder. The schedule will lean on her harder. And players will ask the uncomfortable question, if the league is growing because of stars, do the non-stars get paid like it? Or do they get asked to wait their turn again? That's why people say the players will explode. Not because everyone hates Caitlyn, but because a star economy creates pressure inside a locker room. It changes how people talk about value. It changes how people talk about fairness. And it changes what a strike threat really means. Because here's the scary part. Caitlyn just showed she can dominate a stage outside the WNBA. That's not a criticism. That's reality. And if the WNBA season gets messy, Caitlyn doesn't disappear. She stays visible. Therefore, the league's biggest star becomes even bigger. But the rest of the league risks going quiet. So this follow-up story is not Caitlyn did TV. It's this. NBC just mainstreamed the WNBA's biggest leverage point on an NBA night. And Caitlyn didn't just survive it. She controlled it. So now I want to ask you something. Did NBC just give the WNBA more power heading into the CBA? Or did they just make Caitlyn bigger than the league at the worst possible time? If you're still watching, drop stilts in the comments.